7 steps to regain a woman's interest without begging. Stoicism. Men, let me speak to you directly and without sugarcoating. If you are in a place where the woman you once had interest in seems cold, distant, or unbothered by your presence, you are standing at a crossroads. Too many men panic here. They beg, they plead, they send endless messages, shower her with attention, and hope she'll change her mind. But what happens? She loses even more respect because begging is weakness and weakness never attracts. The truth is simple. You don't regain a woman's interest by chasing, it's by reclaiming your own strength. That's why today we're going to walk through 7 steps rooted in timeless Stoic wisdom, practical strategy, and examples from history to help you shift from desperation to self mastery. You will learn how to stand as a man she cannot ignore, not because you forced her to notice, but because your presence demands it. Remember, Stoicism is not about cold detachment. It is about discipline, clarity, and control over yourself. That is exactly what a woman senses when she decides if you are worth her desire. So before we dive in, I want you to take a moment and ask yourself this. Do you want to continue living as a man who reacts to her every move, or as a man who sets the tone, the pace, and the direction of his life? Because only one of those men regains interest, the man of strength, not the man of need. If you're ready to step into that, then open your mind, commit to listening to every part of this series, and subscribe to this channel. Here, we don't deal in fantasy, we deal in truth, in rational calm, in the discipline of the Stoics. And I promise you, if you apply what you hear, you will not only shift how women see you, but how you see yourself. 1. Stop chasing, start commanding yourself. The first step to regaining a woman's interest is to stop chasing her. Let that sink in. Every time you chase, you reinforce her belief that she is the prize and you are the pursuer. But attraction doesn't work that way. Desire flows towards strength, not desperation. When you chase, you hand her all the power. And in doing so, you quietly declare yourself unworthy. That is why begging, pleading, or overcompensating with gifts and constant attention always backfires. It is not the act itself that repels her. It is the signal beneath it. I need you more than you need me. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Read that again. You cannot control her feelings, her decisions, or her interest, but you can control your own behavior, your presence, your discipline, and the way you carry yourself. And when you do, you shift the dynamic. Instead of running after her like a man desperate for attention, you stand firm, grounded, and in command of yourself. That is the beginning of attraction. Here's a question for you. If she were to walk away forever tomorrow, would you still be proud of the way you carried yourself today? If the answer is no, then you've been living in reaction, not direction. You've been letting her choices dictate your value instead of anchoring yourself in self-respect. A woman cannot respect a man who doesn't first respect himself. Consider the example of Epictetus, a Stoic who was born into slavery. He had no control over his body, his conditions, or his master, but he had control over his mind. He mastered his inner world so completely that even in bondage, he was free. Now, if a man in chains could live with such unshakable strength, what excuse do you have for letting one woman's fading interest break your spirit? This is where modern men fail. They think persistence equals loyalty, that if they just keep showing up, eventually she will see their value. But loyalty without strength is just weakness in disguise. True loyalty only has power when it comes from a man who has the option to walk away. When you show her that your life does not collapse without her, that you do not lose yourself because she is pulled back, you create something she cannot ignore: curiosity. She starts to wonder, why isn't he chasing me? Why isn't he breaking down? And that question begins to stir interest again. Men, you do not regain her attraction by running after her. You regain it by stepping back, regaining command of yourself, and letting her feel the space of your absence. That space forces her to reevaluate your value. And if she doesn't, so be it. You are still stronger for having reclaimed your dignity. So the first step is simple, but it requires courage. Stop chasing. Anchor yourself in self-respect Discipline your emotions and begin to embody the strength that commands attention without ever needing to beg for it. 2. Rebuild respect through boundaries. If you want to regain a woman's interest, you must first regain her respect. Without respect, attraction cannot exist. And here is the truth many men avoid. The reason she lost interest in you is not because you weren't nice enough, not because you didn't give enough, but because you gave too much without boundaries. You allowed her to take your time, your attention, your energy without requiring anything in return. You made yourself easy to access, easy to predict, and easy to overlook. Seneca once wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." Think about that. You were crushed by her withdrawal because you were deceived by her earlier affection. You assumed it would last forever. You assumed you could keep giving without end and she would continue to value it. But women do not respect unlimited access. They respect limits. They respect the man who knows his worth and is willing to enforce it. So here's the question you must ask yourself. What are my boundaries? Do I allow her to cancel on me without consequence? Do I answer her texts immediately even after she ignores mine? Do I listen to her stories about other men while secretly hoping she'll choose me? If so, you have not been setting boundaries. You have been betraying yourself. And a man who betrays himself cannot inspire respect from anyone, least of all a woman. Look at Marcus Aurelius. As emperor, he was constantly surrounded by people who wanted his time, his decisions, his favor. If he had given himself endlessly to every demand, Rome would have collapsed under chaos. Instead, he disciplined his attention. He set priorities. He lived by principles. That is how he maintained not only his power, but also the respect of those around him. Why should you be any different? In modern times, consider someone like Warren Buffett. He is famous not just for his investments, but for his discipline in saying no. He once said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." This is not just business advice, it is relationship advice. A man who cannot say no becomes a man who is easily dismissed. So how do you apply this? You stop being the man who accepts disrespect? If she cancels on you at the last minute, you don't reward that with eagerness the next time she calls. If she treats you like a backup plan, you don't smile and play along. You calmly enforce your boundaries, not with anger, not with drama, but with quiet firmness. I don't accept being treated this way. That one sentence can shift her entire perception of you. Boundaries are not about pushing her away. They are about protecting your value. When you show her that your time and energy are precious, she will begin to feel what she lost. And that is the spark of regained interest. Men, hear me. You do not win her back by giving more. You win her back by demanding more from yourself and from her. Respect begins with boundaries, and without boundaries, there can be no attraction. 3. Reignite mystery and distance. Men, here's something you must understand. Familiarity without polarity kills attraction. When she knows exactly where you are, what you're doing, and that you'll answer every call or message instantly, you remove all mystery. And without mystery, there is no desire. She feels safe with you, yes, but she doesn't feel drawn to you. Safety without desire equals friendship, not passion. Epictetus, the Stoic who rose from slavery to philosophy, said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why is this relevant? Because when you stop explaining yourself to her, when you stop over-communicating in an effort to win her back, you might appear distant or even cold. But that's exactly what forces her to wonder again. And wonder is the root of interest. Here's the question you must wrestle with. Does she know too much about you? Does she already know your schedule, your routine, your emotions, your availability? If the answer is yes, then you've removed the very element that fuels attraction: uncertainty. Mystery is not about playing games. It's about living a life so full, so driven, that she cannot instantly predict or control it. Think of Alexander the Great. He conquered nations not only with power, but with unpredictability. His enemies could not anticipate his next move, and that unpredictability created both fear and respect. Translate this to your relationships. When she cannot fully predict you, she is forced to pay closer attention, she becomes curious again. In modern terms, look at Elon Musk. You may admire him or criticize him, but you cannot ignore him. Why? Because he is unpredictable. One day he's launching rockets, the next he's building electric cars, the next he's buying a social platform. He doesn't beg for attention, but his very unpredictability keeps the world talking. Mystery creates gravity. So, how do you reignite mystery with her? You stop oversharing. You don't update her on every detail of your day. You allow silence. You invest more time in your own pursuits, your fitness, your craft, your career, your purpose, so that when she sees you again, she senses that you've been building, growing, and living without her constant involvement. That space creates tension, and tension is what she craves even if she doesn't admit it. When a man is always available, always predictable, he becomes invisible in her eyes. But when he pulls back, focuses on himself, and lets her feel his absence, she begins to notice. She begins to ask, where is he? What is he doing? Who is he with? Those questions stir the very emotions you've been trying to force through begging. Men, let me be blunt. Attraction is not nurtured by constant presence. It is rekindled by distance. Give her space. Protect your mystery. Live in such a way that she has to wonder again who you are becoming. That wonder is the seed of regained interest. 4. Reclaim your mission and purpose. Men, when a woman loses interest in you, it is rarely about another man. More often, it is about the fact that you lost your center. You made her your mission instead of living for something greater than her. And once she felt that shift, once she sensed that your drive, your goals, your focus had been replaced with neediness, her respect for you weakened, and with it, her desire. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." If your ambition has shrunk down to winning back her attention, you've already lowered your worth in her eyes. Women are drawn to men who move with direction, men who live with a fire that does not depend on a single relationship. Here's a mind-breaking question. If she walked out of your life permanently today, would your purpose still drive you tomorrow? If the answer is no, then you are not living as a man. You're living as a shadow of her approval. And no woman can fall back in love with a shadow. History gives us endless examples. Consider Winston Churchill. During Britain's darkest days of World War II, he didn't wake up every morning asking for reassurance from others. He woke up with a mission to defend his nation against impossible odds. That mission gave him strength, and that strength gave others faith. Purpose breeds respect, and respect breeds loyalty. Modern men like David Goggins embody this as well. Once overweight and lost, he rebuilt his life around a singular mission: discipline and self-mastery. Today, he doesn't beg for admiration. He commands it by living a life so relentlessly focused on growth that others cannot ignore him. That's the same energy that reignites a woman's interest. Not words, but a man consumed by his mission. So how do you reclaim this? You stop making her the center of your universe. You stop waiting by the phone. You stop adjusting your schedule to match her whims. Instead, you set goals that matter: fitness, business, mastery of skills, inner discipline. You live with such clarity of direction that she realizes she is no longer the sun around which you orbit. And here's the paradox. The moment you reclaim your mission, her interest often returns. Why? Because women are magnetized by men who live for something beyond them. They crave the man who is rooted in purpose, who leads, who builds, who aspires. That man is rare, and rare men create deep desire. Men, if you want her to look at you differently, then you must first look at yourself differently. Your mission defines your value, not her validation. Reclaim it, live it, and let her feel the gravity of a man driven by something larger than her. That is how you become irresistible again. 5. Strength in silence. Men, let me tell you the truth. Silence is one of the most powerful weapons you have in relationships, yet it is the one most of you fear the most. Why? Because silence feels like a loss of control. You equate silence with passivity, with weakness, with rejection. But in reality, silence is not the absence of power. It is the purest form of it. Think about it. When a woman begins to pull away, what do most men do? They panic. They start overcompensating with words. They send long paragraphs explaining how much they care. They over-apologize. They confess feelings in a desperate attempt to win her back. They fill the silence with noise, hoping that if they just say enough, she will change her mind. But here's the brutal truth. Every extra word you throw at her in desperation only kills more attraction. Because what she hears beneath your words is fear. And fear is the fastest way to erase her respect. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, put it perfectly. We have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Silence is discipline. Silence is restraint. Silence is control. It is the refusal to hand your power away just because you feel uncomfortable in the space between her texts, in the pause after an argument, or in the void of her temporary distance. Ask yourself this question right now. If you stopped chasing, if you went silent, would she notice your absence? Or would her life carry on unaffected? That question should shake you. If the answer is that she wouldn't notice, then you've already been living as background noise. Your constant reaching out, your never ending words, your compulsive attempts to fix things, they have not added to your value. They have only dulled it. Silence, on the other hand, forces her to feel your absence. And absence, when handled correctly, creates presence. Understand this: desire cannot exist without tension. If you eliminate all tension by constantly filling the void, you suffocate her attraction. What keeps a woman's mind spinning, what makes her heartbeat quicken, is not knowing where you stand every second of every day. It's not being able to predict your next move. It's the mystery of your silence that stirs curiosity. And curiosity is the root of seduction. History has always shown us the value of measured silence. Think of Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. In his councils, he was not the man fighting to dominate the room with volume. He was the man whose silence commanded attention. When he spoke, his words carried weight because he had withheld them until they mattered. That's the model of silence you must embody. Not silence as retreat, but silence as power. Now look at the modern world. Take Steve Jobs as an example. He didn't oversell his products with frantic words. He didn't bombard audiences with endless talking points. Instead, he mastered the pause. He let silence do half the work. His product launches were legendary not just because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say. The room hung on his pauses. The silence built anticipation. And when he finally delivered, the impact was unforgettable. Apply this to your relationships. When a woman pulls back, when she tests you, when she withdraws affection, your instinct might be to fill that gap with explanation. Don't. Hold silence like a weapon. Because silence forces her to face her own thoughts. She begins to wonder, why isn't he chasing me? Did I push him too far? Is he losing interest? That's the kind of tension that reignites desire. Here's the psychology. Women are not drawn to men who are endlessly available, predictable, and desperate to please. They are drawn to men whose presence they cannot fully control. Silence reinforces that. It communicates that you are not desperate for validation. You are not afraid of space. You are comfortable in your own frame. And that terrifies and attracts her at the same time. But don't misunderstand me. Silence does not mean sulking. It does not mean playing childish games of ignoring her just to punish her. That's immaturity, not power. True silence is calm. It is grounded. It is not reactive. It is intentional. You use silence not to hurt her, but to protect your own dignity. To avoid spilling words you'll regret, to show restraint when she tests you. Think of it this way. When a king sits on his throne, does he rush to explain himself to everyone who doubts him? No. His silence is his authority. His presence is his response. And that is the energy you must channel. Now, let me give you a practical example. Imagine she withdraws after an argument. She expects you to send the long apology text, the desperate call, the endless explanations. Instead, you go silent. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in peace. You focus on your mission. You hit the gym. You work on your craft. You go live your life. A few hours pass, then a day, then two. Suddenly, the script flips. She feels the silence. She starts to wonder. She begins to text. Are you okay? Why aren't you calling me? Do you even care anymore? See what happened? Your silence forced her to chase. Here's the paradox men don't understand. When you stop chasing with words, you create the space for her to come forward. And when she does, she comes with more desire than she ever would if you had filled the silence with your begging. 7. Take the risk of truth. Men, let's get brutally honest. Everything we've talked about so far, your mission, your silence, your confidence, means absolutely nothing if you don't have the courage to act. You can reclaim your purpose, you can master restraint, you can stand unshakable, but if you never risk revealing your truth, you remain a ghost of a man. And women don't fall for ghosts. They fall for men who are alive, men who take risks, men who are not afraid to stake their claim and let the world know what they want. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." That is the line that divides men who live fully and men who die in hesitation. And hesitation, brothers, is the silent killer of attraction. How many of you are stuck in hesitation right now? How many of you are circling her like a timid shadow, hoping she notices, dropping hints, liking her photos, giving endless attention, yet never daring to reveal your real intent? You call it playing it safe, but safety is why she lost interest. Women do not fall in love with safety. They fall in love with truth revealed boldly, even at the risk of rejection. So let's ask a question that will cut you to the bone. What is worse, her rejecting you or you living forever as the man who never acted? That question separates weak men from strong men. Weak men choose comfort. Strong men choose risk. And only risk leads to respect, desire, and connection. History proves this over and over again. Take Julius Caesar, once again standing at the Rubicon, that thin river dividing his army from the heart of Rome. To cross it was treason. To stay behind was safety. But Caesar understood something every man must understand. The life you want will never come without risk. So he said the words, "History remembers. Alea iacta est." The die is cast. He marched forward knowing there was no turning back. That act of risk changed the course of civilization. In love, it is the same principle. At some point, you must cross your Rubicon. You must step beyond fear of loss and declare your truth. Not with desperation, not with begging, not with drama, but with calm, unshakable clarity. Think of Alexander the Great. When he landed on foreign shores with his army, he burned the ships. Why? Because retreat was no longer an option. Victory or death, those were the only choices. And that fire of commitment turned ordinary soldiers into legends. In relationships, burning the ships means you stop hiding behind friendship. Stop hiding behind endless texting. Stop hiding behind games. You risk showing her exactly what you want. Modern example? Look at Elon Musk. People see him now as a billionaire genius, but they forget the years when he was mocked, ridiculed, even broke. He poured his fortune into Tesla and SpaceX when experts laughed in his face. Everyone told him it would fail. He risked it all: reputation, wealth, security. Why? Because he believed in his vision more than he feared rejection. Today, the same people who doubted him praise him. Risk is the price of greatness. Now translate that to your life. When it comes to women, most men avoid risk. They settle for being the safe option. They become the emotional crutch, the reliable friend, the good guy who is always there. But what they don't realize is that safety kills attraction. A woman cannot feel desire for the man who hides. She craves the man who risks. Conclusion: regaining interest. Without begging men, let's bring this home. You've heard the 7 steps. Stop chasing, build boundaries, restore mystery, reclaim your mission, master silence, walk in confidence, and finally take the risk of truth. Every one of these steps is rooted in the same principle. You do not beg for respect or desire, you embody it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. That's your task now. Stop asking how to win her back. Start asking how to become the man she cannot help but notice. Because the more you elevate yourself, the less you'll need to chase her and the more she'll feel pulled back toward you. Remember this, her interest is not the prize. Your strength is. If she recognizes it and chooses to return, that's her decision. If she doesn't, you still win because you've risen above the weak, needy version of yourself. You've claimed your dignity. And nothing is more attractive than a man who cannot be broken. So if you found value in this series, subscribe to this channel, revisit these lessons, apply them. Because the man who disciplines himself, who grows in wisdom, who carries himself with calm authority, that man doesn't just regain a woman's interest, he regains his life. And that is the true goal.